So, I think there are about 3 moves that the Yankees could and should make to make them the favorites or co-favorites to get back to the World Series. As of right now, in my opinion, the White Sox are probably the best team in the American League. And if they do what I have predicted them to do in my MLB free agent predictions, and if you haven't seen it, it's in the description down below. If they do bring in the guy that I predict them to bring in, I think they'll be the favorites to win the entire World Series over the Dodgers, over the Padres, over anybody in the National League. That's my opinion, but and I'm talking about 2021 and maybe a couple of years in the near future. But you know, there's moves the Yankees they are making. They're already in talks to acquire Jameson Taillon from the Pirates. If they get him, they get him. He'll slot in definitely behind Cole, and behind Gleyber. But you're talking about 2 kind of reclamation projects too, with Gleyber and Taillon, who had surgery, Tommy John surgery in August of 2019. But he's ahead of schedule and will be ready for spring training and opening day. So that's a good thing. And he is a power arm, and I think if they do bring him in, it's not one of the more flashy moves. I know a lot of folks wanted them to get Luis Castillo, but the package is going to be probably overly prohibitive. And they've already asked for Gleyber Torres, and that's kind of a hard no right at the start right there. Kyle Hendricks is still an option, but his package is going to be just up there with, similar to Cincinnati Reds package, even though their needs are different. There are other guys, Woodruff and Burns from the Brewers, but they haven't been told that they're available, and nobody knows unless somebody comes in there and blows them away with an offer. I don't see them going anywhere. A couple of the young pitchers. I've mentioned Marco Gonzalez from Seattle for quite a while, and I mentioned a couple other guys. But Taillon seems to be emerging as the front runner for the Yankees to get, and the Yankees seem to be emerging as the front runner to get him. We'll see what that that remains to be seen. And we'll see what kind of package they give. I know there's talks about Clint Frazier, but in my opinion, if the Yankees trade him for Taillon, they're insane. Absolutely insane. And honestly, you trade for this kid. You got rid of Andrew Miller. You brought him in as one of the big pieces. Him and Justice Sheffield, who's with Seattle now. He's paid his dues, and he's done everything the Yankees have asked for him of him. And and he finally had an opportunity last year, and he had a breakout. He looks like a budding superstar, to be honest with you. And you don't trade a guy like that, especially one who has 4 years of control left on the cheap, for a guy who's coming off Tommy John, who could be good, but there's no guarantee that it's going to be good. I just don't see it happening. I mean, I think people would be calling for Brian Cashman's head if he did that. But nevertheless, he will cost a couple of solid prospects, maybe an Estevan Florio. They might even move Miguel Andujar for him. I like Andujar, but I'm more okay with moving Andujar than I am Frazier for. Actually, I'm not okay at all moving Clint Frazier for him. So I'm hoping that they don't do that. But that being said, they seem to be the front runners. But the topic of the video is, I think there's 3 moves that the Yankees could and should make to get back to the World Series, and again, or to be favorites for it. That's one of them. It's trading for a starting pitcher. Now, Taillon is not my top guy on the list. I honestly, at Taillon's level, I'd rather just sign Taijuan Walker and bring him in. To me, they're comparable. And Taijuan Walker's not going to cost a ton of prospects. Well, not a ton, but at least 2 solid guys. He won't cost us Andujar. He'll just cost us cash. So that's the way I look at it. If they're going to trade for a starter and give up good capital, it should be a Marco Gonzalez or somebody like that. If they're not going to get Castillo or Hendricks, a Woodruff, or again a Gonzalez, or somebody that has a couple of years of control. Taillon I think has 2, but some of these other guys have 3 or 4, and they're a little bit more. Well, they're more developed. They're not coming off Tommy John. A year and a half ago, a little bit more than a year ago. So I think if you're going to give up that capital, you got to make sure you're getting a little bit more certainty, a little bit more value in return. But that's obviously move number 1, is bringing in a pitcher. That's obvious. I mean, they have to bring in depth because, and I've said this in other videos, for some reason the Yankees, they can have 14 pitchers and somehow 11 of them would get injured. and they'd have three guys, and then they'd be, you'd be throwing Chad Green in there and some of these other guys, and it's like, what is going on? How does their depth get crushed every year? I don't get it. And I've said this in my recent videos too, is they do a much better job at developing relievers than they do starting pitchers, and for some reason the starters are getting hurt at a rate that's much more substantial than any other team I see out there, and I don't understand why. Is it something with the strength conditioning, this, that, or I don't know what it is. I can't speculate that either. It would be unfair because I'm not there every day. Even though I've got 2 decades experience working with athletes, and particularly on the therapeutic and musculoskeletal end, I'm still not there, so I can't speculate. And pitching, it's a pretty violent movement on the arm, so it is obviously they're more prone to injuries. But it's just very weird. And it's weird how, the overwhelming majority of pitchers that get Tommy John are from the right-hand side, not the left-hand side. It's very strange. Very strange. Even though the surgery is named after a left-handed pitcher. It's just really strange. So starting pitcher is number 1. Number 2, personally, I think they need to figure out a way to get Tommy La Stella on this team. Okay? And I've said this too. They need, and this goes for the infield and the outfield. Okay, and I like Mike Tauchman. Don't get me wrong. I like Tyler Wade. I like these other guys. But the problem is, number 1, they don't get enough opportunity to play. Okay, it's really hard to hit a Garrett Cole or a Jacob deGrom or a Josh Hader when you're playing once a week, once every 10 days. It's almost those 100-mile fastballs look like they're 300 miles an hour. It's really hard. So I personally think we need to upgrade on the backup, so the utility guys. I always thought we should get a super utility guy for the outfield and one for the infield. I mentioned Jurickson Profar, but now he's signed with the Padres. So I think Greg Allen has some value. The young guy that they brought in, he's not a heavy-duty hitter, but he plays all 3 outfield positions. Okay, and he's a good defender and he's fast. Okay, so if they don't move Clint Frazier in a trade for a stud pitcher, then an outfield is set, and he should be the 4th outfielder. Okay, instead of bringing Brett Gardner back. I like Gardner, but why'd you trade for Greg Allen if he's going to be number 5 outfielder? What's the point? Okay, we have enough hitting, so we need an upgrade over our current infielders. And I like Tauchman too, but there's folks that are interested in Tauchman, so he might be good to trade for a prospect or 2 who's not going to be on the roster, since they already have to clear 2 roster spots for DJ and Gleyber. Okay, so there's going to be more moves that Cashman's going to make, has to make. So let's keep that in mind too. And I know there's a lot of frustration, Yankee fans, but that's number 2. Okay, and in terms of infield, La Stella, he'd be the super guy, in my opinion, because he plays multiple infield positions, and it would give him an opportunity, just like Greg Allen, who can give the outfielders a day of rest every week or 10 days, which can, so they'd play 120 games or 100, something like that, instead of 145, 150. Give them a little break, let them stay healthy. Okay. The same applies for the infield. You bring in a La Stella, then you can give DJ a break. You can give Gleyber a break. You can give Voit a break. Gio a break. And he can play. He's never played more than 120 games in a season. And I think he'd be a perfect guy to bring in for 100 to 120 games. So not only will your starters have a better shot at staying healthy, but your backups would have a better shot at playing healthy. You're your super utility guy, because he'd be playing somewhat regularly, but not too much to get injured. But, he's already proven that he can hit, playing the amount of games that he's played. So to me, he's a perfect candidate. Plus, he hits from the lefty. He's a left side. He's a contact hitter. He's known to be clutch, which are things that the Yankees need, particularly contact hitting from the left side. So he's, to me, is a perfect fit for this team and for this lineup. I don't see anybody who's a better fit than him. Okay? I just don't. Yeah, and he would only cost cash. He's a free agent. Okay. Yes, they'd have to. I think Cashman's going to make some moves to clear up some payroll. He might move Ottavino. He might move someone else to clear up some payroll. But to me, get this guy on the team. And if I can't speak because it's not my money, but yeah, it might require them to go over the threshold, the 210 threshold. But again, it doesn't matter whether you're at 210 in the beginning of the year. It matters whether you're there at the end of the year. Okay. So at the end of the year, if they're at the threshold, that's when they pay. Okay, because making moves later, if you make a big trade at the deadline or whatever, you offload something, so that's what matters the most. Okay, that's number 2. So a starting pitcher, obviously, which it's clear he's gonna bring in somebody, and Tommy La Stella is number 2. Okay, and number 3 is I would find a way to get Brad Hand on this team in the bullpen. I've said it, and I think they need two relievers, one from the right side, one from the left. I think they do a good job at developing right-handed relievers and power arms, so I think they have somebody in the farm, whether it be a Luis Gil or a Luis Medina or Brooks Kriske or somebody like that who can, come up and kind of do what Chad Green's been doing. And some of these other guys have been doing. So I'm not really worried about relief from the right-handed side. If they bring in Trevor Rosenthal, great. Or, Keone Keela, great. But I think they can do that from what they have in the farm on the right-hand side. Brad Hand, to me, is a power, reliable lefty. And it gives us more lefty, a little bit more lefty relief. I know we've got Chapman. I know we've got Britton. They're both good. But it also gives them flexibility so that if somebody shows interest in like Aroldis Chapman, they think that he could be the missing piece. It gives them flexibility to move him. Okay, he's been a stud with the Yankees. He's just given up home runs and hits at the worst times possible for a couple of years now. Okay, and that's just the bottom line. So to me, Brad Hand, Tommy La Stella, okay, and whatever pitcher they're going to get. Okay, and again, Cashman's going to make corresponding moves to clear up payroll, to move a guy here, move a guy there, to clear up roster spots, because that's the first thing he has to do. But at the same time, I would if I would jump on these guys now, bring them in, and figure out a way to maneuver the other pieces later on. So I would rather do that than him DFAing some of these guys and getting nothing in return. Some folks have shown interest in Tauchman, so no way in the world would I DFA him. It's just I wouldn't. So you trade the guy. I mean, and he's got 5 years of control, so he's got value. He's shown that he can hit. But again, somewhere where he can get a little bit more opportunity than he would here. And it's clear, like in my opinion, if they wanted him to play more often and give the guys rest, they would have. And I understand going with the hot hand and so on and so forth. This guy's on a tear, but giving the guy a day off, one day every week or 10 days, it's not going to throw him off a hot streak. Okay. Being out for a week is what throws people off rhythm, and that's why you see teams like when if they sweep somebody in the playoffs and the other series goes 7 games and then they're not playing for 5 games, they don't look very good the first 2 games of the next series because of that extended break. It's just a similar thing. So, but having them 1 day off doesn't really throw people off. So, anyway, that's my opinion of what 3 moves the Yankees. Those 3 moves, I think, would put the Yankees in the world as favorites in the American League, up there with the White Sox. They have the lineup; it's ridiculous as long as they stay healthy. But bringing in a lefty bat, particularly Tommy La Stella, and I think they've already made their move in the outfield with Greg Allen. But if for some reason, if they trade Clint Frazier, which I think they're nuts to do, the only person I would bring in if they're going to bring in a free agent at that point to replace him will be Jock Peterson. Forget about Yasiel Puig. Forget about Marcell Ozuna. Jock Peterson. He's a lefty. They need more lefty bats. He crushes righties, okay? And he's known to be clutch. And I'd get him before the Angels get him or somebody like that gets him, if that were for them. But I really hope they don't trade Clint Frazier at this point. I mean, this kid is a budding, I think he's going to be really, really good now. And have an opportunity to keep this young kid who's got a lot of control. And again, why bring in, and again, unless you're getting a Luis Castillo and somebody like that. But I'm not a fan of removing Frazier, just like I'm not a fan of moving Gleyber Torres. So, and again, I would still hold the line that, the Padres got Snell and Darvish and Joe Musgrove, and the highest prospect they had to give up was number 3. So, I'm of the opinion, why in the world would we give up Gleyber Torres or Clint Frazier to get Luis Castillo? I just say no and I move on, and I can bring in somebody else. So, again, because it's going to cost a heck of a lot more than Frazier. People are talking Frazier and Clark Schmidt and Davy Garcia, and no way. No. Okay? Again, my opinion, but I'm not going to mortgage a lot of the future to bring in the guy. It's just, I don't have a good feeling about it. So, but again, that's me. I know there's a lot of people that are like, oh, who cares? Bring in and just get him. George will be rolling in his grave and all that stuff. And I get that, but also George's reckless spending, hamstrung the Yankees farm for almost 2 decades. And again, these threshold parameters were not there 20 years ago or 25 years ago. They weren't there. Now they're there and tiered and all this stuff. So it's a different story. So, yeah, would I like the Yankees to get a lot more guys? Sure, but I try to keep it as realistic as possible, which is why I think these moves, which are very, very doable in my opinion, and the maneuvering would not have to be drastic, would give them the value that they need and the fits that they need to make them the top or co-top team in the American League. End of story. Period. Let me know what you think. Give me your comment, your feedback in the comments down below. It's always welcome. And if you're new, welcome to the channel. And folks, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. It's really helpful to the channel. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoy the content. And by subscribing, it really helps the channel grow, and it lets other people know that it exists, that it's out there. And I want as much people, as many people as possible involved. And I like to keep having good dialogue with all of you. So I appreciate all your feedback and your support. So have a great week and be safe. Look out for each other, and I'll talk to you next time.